Hey, it's John Hope Bryant, and this is a very important conversation tonight. And it's a topic that everybody says can't be explained, can't be unpacked, must be too difficult, uh, must be in the too hard basket. You need a PhD to understand it. It's too wrapped in a riddle. It's enmeshed in a history that we will never get our hands around. That's just not true. The mystery of black wealth in America, or the lack thereof, is actually not a mystery. And I'm going to explain it to you. I'm going to unpack it for you in 15 minutes. That's right, 15 minutes. The mystery of black wealth will take less time to understand, or the lack thereof. So black wealth or the lack thereof will take less time for you to understand than it took for you to understand the introduction that I'm making right now. So let's get into this. The audience is joining from LinkedIn. Love you guys live from YouTube. Love you guys from Facebook and all the various pages on Facebook, from Twitter, Instagram. 1.8 million followers total. Thank you all for supporting the civil rights movement. Civil rights was waged and won in the streets, and civil rights will be waged and won in the suites. Civil rights is about protecting yourself from bad actors, and civil rights is about strengthening yourself should those bad actors get through to you, so that you can do for oneself. It's self-actualization. The problem with black wealth, and I'm going to also explain to you those who have achieved black wealth. I'm mostly talking about those who have not gotten black wealth and why. But in an environment of COVID-19 and in an environment in the backdrop of George Floyd's senseless murder in Minneapolis, this is even more relevant in the national civil unrest happening across this country. I'm John Hope Bryant, an entrepreneur, founder of Operation Hope, the largest nonprofit financial inclusion organization in America. Okay, now that was 3 minutes, okay, of my 15 minutes. So you want to give me 3 bonus minutes at the end of this? You'll let me know in the comments. But I'm going to now break this down now for you in now 12 minutes. So black wealth, or the lack thereof. First of all, let's start with the black wealth that you're aware of. The black wealth you're aware of is mostly in things like professional sports, football, basketball, baseball to a lesser degree, soccer in other parts of the world, which is called football every place but the United States. Even tennis and F1 racing and things like that are considered to be places where African Americans have excelled. But that's because the rules are published and the playing field is level. The rules are published and the playing field is level. Either you run fast or you don't. If you run fast, you win. By the way, the arts, entertainment, singing, acting, either you liked the performance or you didn't. Either you sang the song and people felt it, or they didn't. Either you hit that baseball, or you bounced that basketball and made that hoop, or you didn't. The rules are published and the playing field is level, and thus you succeed. So that's where we have excelled. But that's a very small part of American and global GDP, gross domestic product, and wealth creation. By the way, that's making money, not necessarily building wealth. So you can make a lot of money in professional sports, in the arts, and still go broke because maybe you didn't get the memo on money. But I'm getting onto another topic. Let me now, I've got even less time now to unpack this topic. So you need to hold me accountable. Here it is. 400 years ago, and I feature this in my new book, Up From Nothing, which you can pre-order. It's out in October. I break this down. 400 years ago, 1619, Jamestown, Virginia, the first slave entered the American shore. And they came with their peer, which was a poor white indentured servant. The only difference was they both were doing the same work. The indentured servant could buy themselves off of their slavery, their enslavement, and the African could not. So why is the African American today have an average net worth of 8 to 10% of their white counterpart? Here you go. So you're an African from the African diaspora. You're brought here because you're an agricultural genius, not because you're a dummy. You're brought here because you are an agricultural genius on the African continent. You understand soil better than anybody else, and you've proven you can work under any conditions, and you're smart about it. So they brought you to the soil, not in Europe because you couldn't grow those crops in Europe. They brought you to the southern states because that was where the crops were most, where these crops grew the best. One of which, of course, is with the crop we know of cotton. Okay, so you're now working in these fields. What's the epitome of everybody watching these broadcasts? You work hard. This is American creed. You work hard. You play by the rules. You do it legally or whatever by your own. I said whatever because there are illegal ways to make money by your own hand, and you get the fruit of your labor. We're agreement on all that? Yes or no? Fruit of your own labor. That's not black wealth, white wealth, or Asian wealth, Indian wealth. That's just wealth. Latino wealth. Okay. Here's the deal. You work really hard, 16 hours a day on that plantation. And the guy in the big house, his house got bigger. It's called a reverse transfer of wealth. No emotion here, no guilt trip. This is just, I love math because it doesn't have an opinion, right? It's not emotional. This is about capitalism. This is about bad capitalism and about bad, horrible wealth creation on one side of the balance sheet. This is like having a dispute with your mother-in-law. You did something, a slighter, and you didn't apologize for 2 Christmases, and you guys pass each other at your annual gathering and say hello, but you never really sorted it out, so there's a little bit of resentment. Imagine that for 400 years, and then you'll maybe understand why people are so frustrated today. Back to the story. So now you're working your tail off every day, and you wake up every day, and the big house got bigger. There's an extension that's been built in the big house. That's your sweat. There's been a new horse and buggy. Call that a Mercedes today or a Bentley today. New horse and buggy. Well, that's because of your sweat. Whatever you did, you worked really hard, but the transfer of that wealth went to the person, typically a white man, in the big house. You did everything right. He did nothing. And his house got bigger. That went on not for 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, 200 years, went on for 250 plus years. And then you had a year of chattel slavery, which is commercial servitude, through the prison system. So if you were caught out late at night after 6 p.m. into the wrong town, said, you're illegal, you go to jail to do what? Work on what? Where? The prison, the plantation that you just thought you just escaped from. It was a plantation for another name. But the wealth creation was transferred. Now, you were not allowed to have an education. You were not allowed to have a family. Your family was dispersed. Your confidence, your self-esteem was destroyed, so you wouldn't fight back. So all the things that make Americans, a success, were really taken from you. Again, not emotional here. I just want you to understand. You get to 1865, the freedmen's, and by the way, where the word millionaire come from? 1850 in New York City. That's right, a northern state, a northern city. Why? Because the financiers in New York City were financing white gold, not white people, cotton. White gold is what it was called. What was the richest city in America or in the world per capita in 1850? All this is my book, my new book, Up From Nothing. Natchez, Mississippi. That's right. The richest city in the world per capita was a little town that's probably one of the poorest in the world today, certainly the poorest in America, Natchez, Mississippi. The slave port capital for the United States of America for those picking and refining cotton. So the word millionaire was about processing and refining and exporting the same product that was created in the wealthiest city in the world, which was also in the back of black slaves. So why didn't we have the wealth? Because somebody else got it. You fast forward to 1865, after the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln creates a bank. I'm the only American citizen to help to change the name of a building on the White House campus with the help of Operation Hope's mission, which I founded, and I'm honored to be part of this. My whole team gets credit for this. Janae Roscoe, Mary Asham, Rachel Dobb, Lance Triggs, Rod McGrew, Elaine Hungenberg, Brian Betts. Sorry, naming names, I'll get in trouble. But all of the heroes and sheroes on our senior management team, please forgive me for leaving names out. But the legacy folks who've been with me forever, you guys are all part of renaming the building on the White House campus to the Freedmen's Bank from the U.S. Treasury Annex building, because the bank was located across the street from the White House so Lincoln could see it. Every night he came home and looked out the window, he could see the candles burning on his most important social experiment. That bank was created by a black pastor in New York City, domiciled by Congress as a bank, and made part of Lincoln's vision for a true emancipation and freedom after the Civil War. We don't have time for this story today, but if you like what I'm telling you, I'll also break down 40 Acres and a Mule, because Field Action 15 came in January of 1865. That was 40 acres. We worked that land so hard because we were industrious. We weren't lazy. We were hardworking and industrious. Can't be lazy and be worth more than railroads in 1830, 1840, which is what black slaves were worth. We were worth $4 billion. Railroads were worth $2 billion. Again, reverse wealth transfer. So we worked so hard. They said, "My God, they're so industrious. Give them a mule." The next month came the bank, the Freedmen's Bank. So land, machinery, mule, bank to domicile the savings. And also to teach freed slaves about money and financial literacy. That's why I think financial literacy is a civil rights issue of this day. Are you with me so far? Are you understanding this? Lincoln gets killed the month after he founds the bank. That's right, gets killed. Who tries to run the bank? You know him to be an abolitionist. His name was Frederick Douglass, who owned $6 million worth of real estate in Baltimore, Maryland. Okay, so this was a businessman who rented real estate out to working class blacks in Baltimore, gave them the financial freedom to be a freedom fighter. By the way, just so coincidentally, I own a bunch of real estate through another company having nothing to do with Operation Hope that gave me the financial freedom, the Promise Homes Company, renting real estate out to working class and middle class people of color mostly, so that I have the freedom to do this philanthropic work. Complete coincidence, but that's the power of wealth creation. It gives you freedom and self-determination. Back to the story. So Lincoln gets killed. The bank gets pimped basically because it does not have a sponsor. The president after Lincoln was a jerk, and basically stopped what we now call as Reconstruction in the late 1870s. The 18,000 home families that got 40 acres, not 4 million slaves, 18,000. It was a pilot program. Again, we'll get into this if you want me to later. Tell me in the comments you want me to go into it. I'll do a video on that. Most of that land was reversed because after Lincoln was killed, the Confederate soldiers went back in and turned into Rough Riders, the Klan, on horseback, because Lincoln gave most soldiers from the Confederate Army a pardon. They got their weapon and their horse to go back home and make a living. Unfortunately, many of them became cops in the South. We don't have time for this story, but it connects so much to today. They became law enforcement, and that went on to the civil rights movement in the 50s and the 60s, where you had officers with badges who really were Ku Klux Klansmen. It was a long tradition of the Confederates becoming badge holders. They ran those folks off their land. All right. And that goes on to then now you hear about the Black Wall Street that was burned down. All that's connected. Now, you fast forward to 1968. This is the 20th century now. I started this in 1619, this story. And I'm almost out of time. So you tell me whether I can go over 2 or 3 bonus minutes here. So you now are in 1968, all right? And a preacher, not a banker, not a capitalist, not a businessman, not a financier, not a professional ball player, not a professional football player, not a rapper, by the way, all the rappers and professional athletes who became billionaires didn't do it because of sports. They transitioned to corporate and business. That's where their B came from, billion. So everybody has to understand business. But what happened with black, those who were formerly enslaved? We were denied this lesson. Denied the memo on free enterprise capitalism. That's my last book, The Memo, Ownership, Economics, and Opportunity. By the way, the first 10 people who say in the comments, "I want the memo," I'll send you a signed copy of the book. Just put, "I want the memo," and type in Louis.Dees, LOUIS.DES at operationhope.org. Louis.Dees at operationhope.org. I want the memo, and we'll get you a signed copy from me of the book as a gift. But this book describes how we never got the memo. We're not dumb and we're not stupid. We're brilliant. Again, the rules are published. The playing field is level. We succeed. But it's what we don't know that we don't know that's killing us, but we think we know. Why? Because why wouldn't you? In a blind town, a one-eyed man's king. When you don't know better, you cannot do better. Where the black middle class come from? So anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Actually, I'm not. Where the middle class come from? After the World War II. Because now you can join the military and become a doctor in the military, a lawyer in the military. All the professions for blacks came through the military, not the free enterprise system. So why is the black middle class today primarily about those cashing checks versus writing them? cashing them versus writing them, meaning employee versus employer, because we got our professional experience through government service, through the military. The only place where you can find civil rights, a level playing field. Is this making sense to you? Now you have Dr. King in 1968, a pastor, not a banker, businessman, whatever, a pastor in 68 says, we're here to redeem the soul of America from the triple evils of war, racism, and poverty. And now he tackles racism, he tackles the war effort, and now he tackles, by the way, I believe this is the young people's Vietnam, what they're going through right now, the protesting, black and white, together, peaceful protesting. This is your Vietnam moment. It'll become indelible in your spirit. And God bless you, by the way. And then he said, I'm going to eradicate poverty. There are more poor whites in America then and now than anybody else. Did you know that? Then and now. More poor whites. And the biggest transfer payment of welfare, or transfer payments, including welfare, are the whites, not the blacks, even though blacks are the poster child for welfare. And given what I just told you, you think we should have got the most of it. But that welfare won't help you, by the way. That's a hand out, not a hand up. It's a bridge, all supposed to be as a bridge over troubled water. All of us need the tools to be able to do for ourselves. And by the way, we want to do for ourselves anyway. We don't want anybody to give us anything if we can do it for ourselves. But we have to have the tools. So Dr. King now, it's not his work, but he takes it on anyway. And he gets assassinated before the first march, the Poor People's Campaign, April 4th, I believe it was, 1968, 100 years after Lincoln, almost to the day, the same month, he gets assassinated. Before the first march. We just never got the memo on money. Free enterprise. We've been doing so much with so little for so long, we'd almost do anything with nothing. So why? I've done this in almost 15 minutes. Exactly. 400 years in 15 minutes. Why don't blacks have wealth? Because we never got the memo on wealth, because our self-esteem was devastated in slavery. Our self-confidence was confused and debilitated, because as Ambassador Andrew Young, my mentor and Dr. King's aide, who was on that balcony when he was assassinated, said that to live in a system of free enterprise and not to understand the rules of free enterprise must be the very definition of slavery. And what is the work of Operation Hope today? And why am I so passionate after Rodney King riots in 1992 about this work? And why do I believe it's important that George Floyd, it's important to know that George Floyd died in a 500 credit score neighborhood with the police, a 500 credit score neighborhood, because that stuff doesn't happen in a 750 credit score neighborhood with a Jewish man of means, not because there's not anti-Semitism thoughts, that officers may not be anti-Semitic. Most officers are good officers, by the way. But it's not that officer is not racist against Jews. It's because that officer knows that Jewish person in that neighborhood probably has resources and has a number to the mayor and and votes and has resource and does not want to lose their job or their net worth, and so they don't mess with that person. Not that they don't discriminate. They take a calculation in their head that's just not smart. So they police in wealthy neighborhoods and they oversee in poor neighborhoods. Not poor black neighborhoods, poor neighborhoods, but mostly, again, these neighborhoods are black and brown because we never got the memo, which means we don't vote, we don't own a home, we're not a taxpayer, we don't own small businesses. You're starting to get it. We don't create jobs. And so, folks, that's a whole nother video. But I'm trying to help you understand how we got here, that racism is real. You can still be wealthy and get jacked up. I'm not saying you can't. I respond differently when I get pulled over by the police. I stop being John O'Brien and start being an African-American male and responding with the kind of things that will make sure that I get home to my family at night. So I understand how you got to shift your mentality, but you increase your chances of not only surviving, but thriving and winning when you get the memo that I'm talking about. Get this, the black communities that we're talking about, 100% of these murders, by the way, have been in poor black neighborhoods, right? And most homicide rates and poverty rates and drug rates and one-parent households and high school education versus college education and low levels of small business, and all these are 500 credit score neighborhoods, nationwide, black and white. And then you have a check casher next to a payday loan lender, next to a rent-to-own store, next to a title lender, next to a liquor store, next to a pawn shop. You see what I'm saying? There are more payday lenders and check cashers in Mississippi than Starbucks and McDonald's and the whole nation combined. This is the oppressive nature of poverty and those who prey on it. So I've gone over my 15 minutes. I hope you will allow me. I want to provide some context. And Operation Hope is moving folks 50 credit score, 54 points in 6 months. Not about your credit score, by the way. It's about self-esteem. It's about that comes with an increased credit score. It's about optionality. It's about your empowerment. It's about your hope, your faith in the system. It's about being able to go. You cannot get a small business loan at less than 700 credit score. So I don't care how many dreams you have to have the right credit score because it's risky credit. You can't get a good mortgage under 650 credit score. So you see what I'm saying? When half of Black Americans' credit score is below 620, which is what it is today, before COVID-19, you're locked out of the free enterprise system. You never got the memo on money. You don't have the asset base, because somebody transferred your own wealth. You don't have the connections. You hang around 9 broke people, you'll be the 10th. You see what I'm saying? You can be wealthy and white. I'm sorry, the child of somebody who's wealthy and white, and you could be a mediocre education and mediocre intelligence and mediocre work ethic and still succeed more than the most brilliant Black person in the hood because all the decks are stacked in your behalf. You get an internship because your father calls the company he's invested in and say, don't you want to give my son an intern, or he needs an internship? The guy goes, oh, sure, send him over. That's the way that's not a conspiracy against you if you're Black or brown. That's the way the world works. So we need people who have color, who have wealth, to be able to hook their neighborhoods up like everybody else hooks up their neighborhoods. That's why I said that we needed a Black Bill Gates as much as we needed a Black president. Drop the mic. I'm out. This is the civil rights movement. Thanks for listening to me. Let me know your thoughts and your comments. Join the movement. Go download the new Marshall Plan that I wrote for the Milken Institute 2 weeks ago. It is also now in the American Banker. I believe is going in a version of the Wall Street Journal, but you can download it right now. The new Marshall Plan by John Hope Bryant. Join this movement. Follow our channels for operational. Follow me at John Hope Bryant on all channels. And tell your mayor, your city council people, your Congress people, your county board of supervisors, your state legislators, your Congress, that this movement's coming their way and you want them to support it. Listen, the new movement is about green, people. If you're in the U.S., the color's not white, black, red, brown, or yellow. It's green. And it's time for poor people and Blacks who work so hard in this country, and they're working right now as your secondary sponsors under COVID-19 to keep you safe, keep deliveries coming to your house, keep your shelf stocked. We're doing all the jobs that are at most risk right now, so everybody else can live these distanced lives. They deserve our respect, and they deserve that the ladder be rebuilt for a new generation. They deserve a chance to live out this American creed of free enterprise economics and opportunity for all, and we deserve. We have earned the right through our blessings to be of service to others who didn't and don't have them. I'm out. John Hope Bryant. Love you much. Let me know what you think about tonight's broadcast. 400 years of history in 15 minutes. Yes, I missed a lot of stuff. I had 15 minutes.